Good morning, everybody. I am Yogendra Deva, your host for today's webinar on strategy for investigation of long tunnels. For details, you can visit our website www.dhawanacademy.com. Our academy basically has been brought to life for filling the gap between academics and industry. Our main motto is skill development of our friends, our professionals, their mentoring, and we are into consulting in a big way. We cater to subjects engineering geology, engineering, mineral exploration, and all allied earth sciences. We have got a very rich blend of experts from government, PSUs, private, and industry. We are into organizing these online programs. They are the trainings. We have started one open house. The next open house we will be conducting on the next Saturday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And this webinar, the presenter today is the founder and chairman of the Dhawan Academy of Geologists, DDAG Private Limited, Dr. Gopal Dhawan. He is a versatile person. He has served in many capacities in high positions. He is consulting engineering geologist. He is the formerly chairman cum managing director of Mineral Exploration Corporation Limited and the formerly executive director Geotech and Project Investigations NHPC. And I must say that he is an excellent orator that you will make out yourself after hearing to him. Before we start the program, I request you to feel free to raise queries in chat box. We won't be able to take the queries in person. So start raising the queries while the presentation is on, and we shall take these up after the presentation. Don't worry, if your query is not answered due to time constraint, we shall revert with answers by mail. And now it is over to Dr. Gopal Dhawan. Dr. Gopal Dhawan, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Deva. Good morning, gentlemen. Well, this webinar is basically designed for young members of Tunneling Association of India, and I am aware that many people, maybe more than 100 people, have joined from the industry, except members of the Tunneling Association of India. I'm very happy to speak to this large audience, maybe more than 200 people or so. And today, my topic is strategy for investigations for long tunnels. And I'm speaking particularly with reference to India. I shall be covering my presentation in 4 parts. First, defining the problems and unknowns in a tunnel. Basically, you will see that how little we know in a tunnel. Then what are the tools to know more, how to identify risks and how to manage them, and what should be our strategy. Defining the problem. Tunneling technology has improved significantly in other countries, particularly developed countries, and even not so developed countries like China. But in India, our tunneling progress is not more than 60 meters per month per phase in most cases, and particularly because I come from hydropower industry. So my experience is more relevant for hydropower tunneling. Although I'm aware that even in India also, in highway tunnels and in railway tunnels, a better job is being done. But overall, we really need to understand that why this is so. And even deployment of TBM has not helped in completing tunneling projects on time. Examples are from two running projects which are under construction at present. One is Parvati 2 in Himachal, and the other one is Tapovan Vishnugad project in Uttarakhand. Both are hydropower projects, mega hydropower projects, being done by two prominent national construction agencies under public sector. Initially, when these TBMs were deployed on these two projects, these were with very high hopes. And initially, they really did well. The progress was good, rather excellent. In Parvati, I remember that in 1 month, the TBM did more than 300 meters. But once the TBM got stuck, there were problems. Initially, it took a lot of time to resolve the contractual problems. And even after contractual problems were resolved, we couldn't overcome it. And still, progress is going on with a very, very slow pace. My own understanding is that conventional investigations have provided very limited understanding of the ground, and therefore we need to investigate the tunnel alignments in a better manner with a backup of modern investigating techniques. Here, today we will discuss the strategy of investigations, how to improve it, how to strategize it, how to do it in a lesser time so that we can put few things in parallel, and which finally reduces percentage of unknowns along the tunnel, or which increases percentage of knowns in a tunnel. You take any tunnel, you will find three prominent categories after you complete your geological investigations. Few reaches of tunnels will be well known to you. You would know that what type of rocks are expected, what would be the jointing pattern in these stretches, and how they are going to behave. So these are the known phases, the known areas, and we call them known knowns. These can be dealt by good design and proper planning of excavation. In the second category, in some reaches of tunnel, you would know the problem. Problem is known to you, but where it is going to occur is not known to you. These should be mitigated by appropriate contractual architecture. But the third category is dangerous, where you neither know what would be the problem, nor you know where it will occur. And these are the most dangerous situations, and Parvati was under one such situation where water with very high ingress with lot of silt appeared suddenly, and the TBM got submerged. And mostly in Himalayas, water is one of the major troubling agent. If it is not estimated in advance, it is going to put you in trouble. But even after doing that, there will be certainly some residual uncertainties which are to be dealt as they will come. Having understood that what we are confronted with, I would like to give you through this picture an idea that from where we start. This is a picture from Bhutan Himalayas, Chamkarchu project, which we investigated between 2010 and 2014. I was member of the team who initially visited this, and this was the proposed tunnel alignment by us. You will see the area is totally inaccessible. There is complex geology, which is very common to all parts of Himalayas. You can hardly see any rock outcrop. You cannot do deep investigative drillings because of poor accessibility, how you will take truck-mounted rigs. So there are problems and problems. So how to resolve them? And you should really understand that how scanty is the data based on which we try to prepare a geological section, and then we do rock mass classification, and from there we plan entire excavation and support design of a tunnel. So therefore I say that how little we know. So you can yourself understand, from 2 to 3% of rock outcrop, you are going to make 100% prediction of the geology along the tunnel alignment. From that kind of a hill, whatever outcrops you will measure or you can traverse, which are humanly possible to visit by a geologist or a group of geologists, you will try to interpret a geological section along a tunnel alignment, which will look like something like this in every tunnel, where with these colored symbols, we have defined types of rocks. We have also tried to understand that what are the structural features, particularly thrusts or faults in Himalayas. There is a fold also you can see. So even if my geological understanding through whatever mapping I have done is correct, I can estimate the type of rock which is going to be intercepted. Suppose if my pointer indicates the tunnel alignment, you can estimate the type of geology, the type of rock along the proposed tunnel alignment. But within a particular rock, it is highly unlikely that it will be uniform throughout. There will be changes in the jointing pattern, joint spacing, nature of joints, then holistically the structure will change. Suppose this band of limestone on this limb of the fold would be different than the other limb of the fold. So geostructurally, these are different. So it is not appropriate to judge the behavior of a rock mass purely based on our geological assessment. We must bring in concept of geostructural unit into it. Now, after doing our geological mapping, making the section, we conventionally make an attempt to understand the rock mass with help of some rock mass classification. For example, here in this case, it is RMR. You will see prominently there are two kinds of rocks, and for each sector, the geologist has done rock mass classification. So based on the outcrops which he has measured on the surface, which are very few in number, we are trying to predict behavior of rock mass in entire reach, and we are trying to assess the rock mass classes in percentages through these pie diagrams for all the three sectors. So you can yourself imagine that how far, when you make the actual tunnel, when you construct the tunnel, excavate the tunnel, it will be a surprise if this kind of classification will totally come true. Based on my experience, I divide the expected rock masses along a tunnel alignment into three categories equally. I mean, it is my own assessment that we know about 1/3 of the area falls into the known unknowns, 1/3 in known unknowns, and the balance unknown unknowns is also 1/3. With improved approach of investigations with integrating advanced techniques of investigations, and by improving the standards of geological mapping, which is very, very essential, our attempt is to increase this area of known knowns from 1/3 to 2/3, and this is possible. Strategically planned investigations convert the gray areas to known knowns from gray to orange. So otherwise also the gray area or unknown areas are to be minimized if we want successful tunneling. What are the tools at our command? And what is the concept of investigation? Investigation can be defined as a methodology of acquiring advanced knowledge of the site conditions so that techno-commercially viable tunnel layout can be developed. I am consciously aware that I am today speaking to many young geologists, many young engineers through the Tunneling Association of India Young Members Group. So therefore, I'm trying to go into rudimentaries of this. Maybe the experienced people who are listening to my talk may not require such simplistic explanations. And with this background, we can certainly say, and it's a common sense, that if we do good quality investigations, we do adequate investigations, invest proper time and money on this, we will face less uncertainties and less of cost claims in it. So why investigations? Or I should say, why we need strategy for investigations? To develop a geological model, a dependable geological model. I showed you a section. So that section, before we start making our DPR, should be very well freezed. And this will happen only after you develop a dependable geological model. If you have a good model, you can optimize the layout of the tunnel. And your rock mass conditions, assessment of rock mass conditions along the proposed tunnel will also be dependable to a certain extent. And our basic aim to do investigation is to forecast geological problems during tunneling. And finally, to design the support requirement for all rock class units which are expected. And once we do this, we will be in a position to prepare a dependable cost estimate and time required for completion of tunnel. Not only that, we will be in a position to choose the right kind of technology for tunnel construction. Now, how much can we investigate? Because whatever I've spoken till now, somebody may be misguided that by doing good investigation or improving investigation or strategizing investigation, we can investigate 100%. No, this is not my intention. From this ISRM figure, we can understand that how much investigation we can do. On the x-axis, you will find risk of unforeseen problems from 0 to 100. Sorry, this was on y-axis. And on the x-axis, we have plotted the acquisition of pre-construction geotechnical data from 0 to 100 again. So as we proceed from 0 to 100, you will see this blue line is descending. It is going down and down and down. And maybe if we collect 100% information of the strata through which we have to tunnel, there will be 0% risk. But let us see how much really we can collect. The brown line here also, once again on y-axis, we have plotted the expenditure. So you will see with more acquisition of data, with more efforts required, more money is required. And finally, these two curves intersect at this point, which is around 60%. And beyond this, you will find that the brown curve become steep initially and then almost vertical. So it means you can't cross beyond 80%. Whatever you may do, it means 20% residual uncertainties will always be there. So that is the level of confidence on investigations. And only therefore, you have to, initially you have to do a good investigation and then to plan a contract in a manner so that you can intervene in between and there could be some mid-course correction. We'll talk about that. Normally, in any investigation campaign, we start with survey, remote sensing, geological mapping. And these days, good geologists normally record geotechnical parameters on each outcrops so that they can do rock mass assessment by any method they prefer. It may be RMR, it may be Q, or nowadays in many places GTBT classification is also in vogue. And you can use that for GSI classification, geological strength index, and many other types of tools are available. Then we do some little exploratory drifting, particularly in low cover reaches and portal areas. Exploratory drilling, which is most important, is done, but minimum. In my opinion, it is, in Indian context, if I say, it is just a lip sympathy, and we do some drilling only in low cover reaches, Nala crossings, or maybe where we anticipate a major geological problem. I have not seen any deep drilling for any tunneling project as yet. We do good drilling for dam and powerhouses, but not for tunnels. And then we do apply some amount of geophysical investigation. We'll talk about it. And rock mechanic testing. The basic aim is to delineate the rock types, to establish adequate rock cover along the alignment, to estimate the rock stress, estimate expected rock classes along the tunnel alignment, and probable zone of water seepage, and any other structural feature. So this is our aim. And this had been our aim, and this will be our aim in future too. But the only difference is with some more seriousness, or you can say a systematic approach by integrating advanced techniques of investigation. And these are, what are these advanced techniques of investigations? LiDAR-based mapping. It is a quicker method, and particularly wherever area is totally inaccessible, it is helpful. Airborne geophysical surveys. These days, all NHAI contracts are asking for EM surveys, airborne geophysical surveys. We have yet to see results, but I'm very hopeful that this is a very, very important step for improving quality of investigations. Then the drilling, directional drilling, which can investigate the medium below the Nala beds, below the river crossings, in any kind of tough geological condition. And one of the best examples which I know is the Gotthard tunnel in Switzerland, where a marl band, which was very thick, was investigated with help of about 1.5 kilometer long drill hole. And then during construction, tunnel seismic prediction system is very useful. We in NHPC, initially I had served in NHPC, and we had been using it at several projects. To cater to the design requirement, we will have to do extensive laboratory tests, mainly on core samples, which we will either collect during the geological mapping or from the drill holes. In situ test for stress measurements along the long tunnels, And then if the tunnel is to be driven by TBM, elaborate rock mechanic testing is required. While focusing on other investigating techniques, we should not forget that RMR and Q system, there are so many others, but the Indian geologists are somehow more convinced with these two classification systems. These are very important tools, particularly during the investigations. And this is one tool which remains useful to you from preliminary state of geological mapping to the advanced state of geological mapping, tunnel stage, support stage design, and also during the construction. Originally, these methods were designed for estimating tunnel supports, and later they were extended for assessing the rock mass properties as well. Nowadays, there are several empirical equations which help you to understand rock mechanic properties of, if you know RMR or Q, you can assess C, phi, modulus, and other properties of rock mass. And both the classification system provide a realistic estimate for numerical modeling purposes. But my suggestion is that we should keep a check. We should try to correlate the values we get from RMRQ or Geological Strength Index, GSI, which is established by Hoek, with the actual rock mechanic testing program, so that our estimates do not go haywire. So some amount of testing is required during the DPR stage, so that we can use those figures for our designs. And these, both the methods are useful even during construction of the tunnels for quantifying the encountered rock mass conditions, select the appropriate rock classes, resolve contractual disputes, arbitration, and design changes. Many times people ask that which one is better, RMR or Q? I think this question was asked to Barton and Biniewski both. So both have written a paper in 2008, wherein they have stated that RMR and Q are found to be equally effective for very poor and very good rock masses. So entire range of rock mass, these are useful. So now the risk identification and management. Geological study should be aimed at identifying major risks, but at the same time, terrain limitations in investigations are to be appreciated. Geophysics and exploratory drilling is to be used judiciously, and suitable provisions are to be made in the contract. These are the four, you can say, mantras for risk identification. And we must do it before we start construction. We should identify geological and hydrological risks. And these two things are to be done only with a backup of good geological data, which emerges from good geological mapping. And the typical risks which I have seen in most of the tunnels are tunnels running into the overburden, expected fault zones, squeezing rock zones or rock bursts, weak, sheared, crushed, fractured rock masses, variation in predicted rock classes or rock types affecting the completion schedule, and the groundwater with high discharge that hampers tunneling work. And particularly, it is enemy of those tunnels where TBMs are deployed. While browsing through literature for my own work, I came across this paper by Ian Smith, in which he has given a risk matrix, which appeared to be very useful to me. He has identified likelihood of the risk, which you can see in the vertical column, rare, unlikely, possible, likely, and most certain. And in the horizontal row, the consequences of a risk, whether it is insignificant, minor, moderate, major, or catastrophic. Then you will see that this matrix, we have 4 colors here in this matrix, from green, yellow, orange, and red. Obviously, green is of very low intensity and red is the most severe intensity. For after identifying from R1 to R4, he has given a action plan for R1, R2, R3, and R4 separately. Because of time constraints, it will be difficult for me to discuss each risk category, but certainly I think those who are interested will find this in literature. And then he has given the risk mitigation measures also. He has classified various kinds of risks and given possible mitigation measures, which are very elaborate and self-explanatory. You can read his paper and find this. Now, what should be our strategy? Whenever, as I showed you the picture of a project in Bhutan, luckily I was heading the team in 2010 who initially visited this. And that reconnaissance visit in the early stage was very, very much useful to us. Reconnaissance visit in early stages. Because with an experienced team, you can rule out certain nuisance areas just while you are walking through the terrain. In case of hydropower project, you can eliminate more than half of the problems based on your regional geological setup if it is known to you during reconnaissance. So it helps to avoid problematic areas. You must carry topo sheet and remote sensing backup of remote sensing studies at that time. Regional geological maps, luckily, once again, in Indian context, GSI has prepared almost geological maps for all areas, maybe about up to 98% areas geologically covered. And we have geological maps either on 1:50,000 scale or 25,000 scale. So these are very useful to us. And if we have a peep into the literature, which is made available to us by universities, by researchers, we can estimate the geological context and geology, the reasons why the low cover zones in a particular area have developed. So this is the strategy number 1, which I should say prior to we start investigation. And after that, we must plan airborne EM surveys, or in low cover reaches, we can use seismic reflection and resistivity profiling and imaging. Because drilling was not possible at all the places, every project. To me, this has really been very useful in the estimating the geological situations in the low cover reaches. I'm not aware what are the results of EM surveys which are being done nowadays for several tunnels which are being planned by NHAI. So this much understanding requires to be developed even before we start investigation during the feasibility stage. In feasibility stage, we should do engineering geological mapping, that is EGM, on minimum 1:5,000 scale. Integrate this EGM with geology, with geophysics, geophysical results, remote sensing data, and whatever is there at your command. Overall geological model is developed in this stage, and rock mass types as expected in tunnel are identified. Geological contexts are established, rather reaffirmed. Whatever you had estimated based on your regional geological understanding are to be firmed up. and then a lot of rock mechanic testing, petrology of various rock units is to be done. And if required, some short holes should also be done. And during the detailed geological investigations, we need to do geological geotechnical mapping, reinterpretation in light of fresh data, integrating results of exploratory drilling and rock mechanic testing. This is the stage when you should plan whether you should have a deep drill hole or a directional drill hole or not. And this is the stage when geotechnical assessment of rock mass classification is developed for each geostructural unit. Rock mass classification for known conditions greatly help in estimation of rock supports or the treatment required in those areas. Risk assessment is done with special attention to major lineaments, fracture zones, shear zones, nulla crossings, and unexpected geohydrological conditions. Then poor rock mass zones should be confirmed by deep drilling or directional drilling, as I have just said. And finally, all this data is to be synthesized in a geotechnical baseline report. And this should be separated from your DPR concepts. And at this stage, you would know that how much we know along the tunnel, how much known unknowns are there, and how much area is still unknown to us. These will be identified. And if you have that, then support design charts and instrumentation plan for each geostructural unit can be finalized. To synthesize everything, I will just take a minute. I think, yes, I'm running into my last minute now. This is a flow chart which I developed during my PhD, which was on the rock mass quality parameters and tunnel supports for Himalayan tunnels, where in the central column you will see that whatever geological mapping, data acquisition, rock mechanic testing, remote sensing, geophysics, and whatever techniques you have applied, this is the source. This becomes the source of analysis for everything. In short, I should say, the central column takes you to support design by empirical methods, that is rock mass classification. On the left-hand side, you take out the discontinuity data and apply your softwares of DIPS and UNWEDGE and get an idea about the structurally unstable zones. And on the right-hand side, then from concept of general parameters just such as rock strength, and you know how much is the rock cover, you will come to know whether there is any chance of stress failure or not. And if you club all this, if you integrate, you will optimize your tunnel support requirements. And with this, I would conclude in few words: do adequate investigations, keep ways for mid-course correction, select right agency, and prepare for worst kind of risk and prepare good risk management plan for difficult reaches. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dhawan. Thank you so much. You have been an excellent orator, and today was no different. I enjoyed every bit of the lecture, which I have heard earlier also. Anyways, so I think now, and I mean, because my video was off when I came as an introducer in the beginning, so I am Yogendra Deva, your host for today, and I have got only just a few queries here. So I am sharing those queries, Dr. Dhawan, and I think you can please try to reply to those.
So the first query which I can read is, any project in India where directional drilling is implemented for investigations? Unfortunately not. Just a couple of days ago, I and Mr. Ravi, who works for SMEC, and I am also a part-time advisor to SMEC. We were trying to locate an agency who can do directional drilling. So, I mean, while answering your question, I will say Neither we have any case where we have done directional drilling in India for any infrastructure project, nor do any agency is prepared to take up this role as of now, because this is based on just our exploration, which we have done about a week ago. We spoke to several agencies, but somehow we could not find any convincing answer from anyone. So I think this is the answer to this. As we know, in many cases, pilot tunnel is constructed along main tunnel to check the strata. Can't it replace with directional drilling as it is fast and robust? First of all, we do very small pilot tunnels as far as headless tunnels are concerned. These are more common in underground powerhouses. But as far as tunnels are concerned, these are small adits which are drived or excavated near the portals. Along HRT per se, we don't do that. And certainly, if we can do directional drilling, as I have given example from Gotthard Tunnel in Switzerland, and very old example, and several other examples are there overseas, where directional drilling has been done, it will certainly be good for tunneling industry in our country. It is certainly fast and robust. Third question is, RMR and Q systems are primarily proposed approaches for rock mass exposed along the tunnel face. However, many people suggest and calculate RMR by recovered cores during geotechnical investigations. Is it really practically possible? And if yes, how much reliable it is? Well, it's a very good question, and I have got an opportunity to share with you what perhaps I wanted to, but I could not because of paucity of time. You see, RMR and Q system, basically these were proposed for rock mass classifications while you excavate, I mean, estimating the rock class at the face where you are standing inside the tunnel. And once you do that, both the classification systems guide you towards selection of some kind of support. Later on, what we did, we tried to extrapolate. We tried to use or misuse it by applying it on the rock outcrops. As in one of the sections you have seen, that there's a cover of about, say, 700 or 800 meters. I find a rock outcrop about 800 meters up, and I estimate all the parameters required for RMR and Q or for either of them. Can you imagine the rock mass class will uniformly go by maintaining its characters 700 meter deep into the tunnel? It is highly unlikely. I will be surprised if we do so, if we get. So it has to be used very judiciously. Whereas I myself use RMR and Q both in estimation of the assessment of rock mass classes along the tunnel alignment by using the outcrop data, but we need to understand what are our limitations. I had written a paper for comparing the outside and inside data for a highway tunnel in Chamera project. It was a small tunnel, road tunnel, you can say, not highway tunnel, and we could find a lot of similarities. This paper is available in IAEG Symposium 1990. Those who are interested, I can share a copy of that. So it is possible. From outside, reliability is less, but when you stand in front of the face, it is 100% reliable. There is no doubt in that. So I think these are these three questions, and I'll scroll down. Maybe there are a few more. The question is from Mr. A.K. Mehrotra. How known unknown is converted to known known by strategic planning at what stage? Once again, a good question. You see, after geological mapping, by good outcrop survey and by a very sincere effort by a team of geologists, you will have some confidence for certain areas along the reach of the tunnel that I'm sure that I cannot go wrong in this area. I will get limestone and I have 3 or 4 geostructural units in limestone. But there will be some areas where you will apprehend that in the limestone rock mass, I have some shear zones. I really do not know that what are proper RDs where these thick shear zones are going to intersect, or to add insult to injuries, whether there will be some amount of groundwater through these shear zones, appearing through these shear zones. So the right stage is the detailed investigation stage where it should be unearthed. The right technology is a mixture of geophysics, but geophysics has certain limitations. It cannot be applied everywhere. It will depend upon the terrain. It will depend upon the topography, and it will also depend upon the problem you are dealing with, that what kind of technique you can apply, or several techniques together can be applied. And if you can investigate these areas by some medium depth drill holes, targeting those weak zones, that will also help you to convert the unknowns to knowns. So your question is how known unknown is to be converted to known known. So this unknown, once we know the location, then known unknown is converted into known unknown. I hope, Mr. Mehrotra, I have given you the answer. I do not know whether you are satisfied or not. Abhishek Kaushik is asking, which method of tunneling is more economically viable?
Yes, sir, I am satisfied, sir.
Satisfied. Thank you very much. Thank you. Which method of tunneling is more economically viable and traditionally used? I think, Abhishek, you wish to ask whether the drilling and blasting method or TBM method. These are the two main types which we normally use. And within DBM, whether we are using NATM method or something in between. So in my opinion, both the methods are good. TBM basically in Himalayas has been applied if we can't find extra entries into the tunnel, if we can't find additional edits, because why our thumb rule is to minimize tunneling per phase by conventional methods of DBM by about 2.5 kilometers per phase. If it is more than that and we can't find intermediate access, then we go for TBM. But it has to be decided in conjunction with geology and so many other things. I mean, I don't have a ready-made answer in support of any of the methods. All methods are good, but the only thing is how seriously you adopt a method and how seriously you do your work, that is more important. We are developing directional core drilling. We recently bid for a few projects in Himalayan geology. Sandeep, HDC. Sandeep, I would be very much interested to speak to you. Maybe after our webinar, please get in touch with me. My email and telephone number will be displayed.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For proposed tunnels through protected environmental area, the collection of data would be as suggested in the presentation, resistivity, remote sensing, and so on. How reliable is this data, and how would the data be converted into engineering parameters? A tough question, because you have said environmentally protected areas. First of all, you see, as far as I know, in such areas, total entry is banned. So you can have a broad geological model based on regional geological mapping or some remote sensing studies and some aerial airborne geophysics can also be done. But for assessment of the rock mass characters, which are required for RMR and Q, I mean rock strength, joint spacing, aperture, and so on, you have to have some sample outcrops. So, and as far as I understand, normally you will not get permission of doing any project in India in such areas. But in case you get, so first of all, you will apply. You will have to apply for doing investigation in such areas. This, with my background of mineral exploration, which I did for about 5 years as CMD of Mineral Exploration Corporation, MECL, we used to take a special approval for doing investigation in environmentally protected or reserve forest areas. If you are lucky, then you can proceed further. Otherwise, there is no indirect method to convert all this information into engineering parameters. Some conversion can be done, but not very reliably. So this is answer to you, Mr. Avadhir Rajan. And the next question is,
Mr. Dhawan, if I may interrupt, this is the last query, and you have got 2 minutes to finish this. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. Okay, I'm very lucky in that case. So this is once again from Mr. Kaushik. What are the key reconnaissance survey strategies which you will adopt, sir? My key reconnaissance strategy is only 2 legs given by the God to me. And the picture I showed, which is from my investigation campaign in Bhutan from 2010, when I was about 5 years old, I traversed 100 kilometers at a stretch in 12 days. And there were, I was lucky to have a few young colleagues from NHPC, Mr. Sharat Bhatnagar, Arindam Chakravarti. Later on, this work was carried forward by Imran Syed when I left NHPC. So reconnaissance, of course, if I say the stages of reconnaissance, take Survey of India topo sheets, go to the Google Maps, which are readily available, take good imageries before you go to site, but nothing can replace the actual traversing of the ground. So this is the prescription for you, Kaushik. So with this, I think I have answered this question, Devasap. And in case I have half a minute left, I would personally thank you for this wonderful coordination, because both of us are joining this webinar from kilometers apart. And our administrator, Mr. Bhattacharya, Anirudh Bhattacharya, is sitting somewhere else because of COVID. So this COVID has given us an opportunity to really test our skills, that we can do this sitting apart at different places. And you have really coordinated it wonderfully well. Thanks a lot to you. And thanks to audience for very patient hearing. Thank you very much. And Sandeep, please don't hesitate in contacting me because I'm desperately looking for an agency who can do direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Dhawan. Thank you very much. You have been very lucid to the just on to time. Exactly. It is 11:55. And I would like to say some more words about you, but I think I will leave these good words to be spoken by the chair of the Tunneling Association of India, young members, Mr. Sandeep Singh Nirmal. He wanted to speak something, and the microphone, the screen everything over to you, Mr. Sandeep. Please come along.
Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation and a fantastic experience sharing by Dr. Dhawan. And I really appreciate the work that was done to make this webinar possible by the DDAJ team and TAIYM team. To finish the presentation and with all my thanks to DDAG Limited and Dr. Dhawan, I would like to share the announcements from TAIYM for upcoming events. So our next webinar is on 30th May 2020, which is on planning and execution of Tideway Central Tunnel of Thames Tideway Tunnel in central London by Russell Brown from L&T. He has a vast experience of about 40 years in tunneling and working in various parts of the world. And this is, believe me, this is going to be a fantastic presentation, because at the moment this is the most expensive civil engineering project in the world, which is being constructed. And I was personally involved in the earlier part of the designs. So I understand how many challenges and how many complications we went through while looking into this. We will be waiting for you to join for this lecture as well. Then we have our online blog, where we motivate young engineers to share their personal experiences in their own words. And recently, Mr. Shaz has shared his experience of tunneling in Manipur, where reaching to the site takes around 2 to 3 hours every day. And it is a challenge in itself with unmetalled roads and so many security issues around the area. So it's a fantastic read. You will be happy to, you'll definitely enjoy it. If you have a time, please go through this link, and in case you're not able to record this link, kindly email me. I'll share this with you. Then we have our next edition of newsletter coming up in May. The previous one was a success in July 2019. Further, TAIYM is coming up with a video version of a blog where young engineers can share their experiences in 15 minutes casually, just talking about them, and so that everybody else can learn from their experiences as well. For moving on further to a global outlook, International Tunneling Association Young Members has created its LinkedIn page recently, and I would request you to kindly follow this for upcoming global developments in tunneling across the world. And TAIYM is very active in global platform, and they have had many contributions from various young members. So it's time to follow the global activities as well. Do contact us at this email if you are a young member and want to join TAIYM, and please feel free to share your experiences through blogs and webinars. Always feel free to connect us to this email. Happy tunneling, and thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining, everyone, and thank you very much again for Dr. Dhawan and DDAG Private Limited for collaborating and making this webinar possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandeep. Dhawan Academy, thanks everybody for joining in. You have been a great audience, number of queries and all. So thank you so much. We soon meet in one of our other programs. Thank you so much, and bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.